I get it, you've probably spent a few minutes scrolling through glossy Amazon listings, watching the sleek tower UPS pictures and reading the 1500 VA 120V headline, only to feel a knot in your stomach because every review you've seen seems to gloss over what really matters when the power actually flickers. You've heard the horror stories of cheap UPS units that look solid in a photo but either shut down too quickly during a brownout or emit that annoying high-pitched whine that makes you want to yank the plug out. That hesitation is real, and it's why I'm doing this deep dive so you can walk away with a clear picture of whether the Eaton 9SX 1500 VA tower is the right fit for your home office or workshop, and avoid the disappointment that comes from buying something that only looks good on paper. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of environment where a UPS like this actually gets put to work. I'm thinking of a typical small to medium home office setup, a desktop computer, a monitor, maybe a router and a couple of external hard drives. For some of you, it could be a single-board computer used for a 3D printer controller, or a modest video editing rig that you don't want to lose a half-finished project on. The Eaton 9SX is a tower-style model, which means it takes up roughly the same footprint as a standard mid-tower PC case. At 46.29 pounds, it's not something you'll happily move around like a laptop, but it's also not a floor-standing rack unit that demands a dedicated space. If you have a desk or a small shelf that already hosts a desktop tower, you can slide the UPS in right next to it, keeping the cords tidy and the power line visible. Now, the biggest question most buyers ask is, will this unit keep my gear running long enough to save my work and shut things down properly? The 1500 VA rating translates to about 900 watts of continuous output. In plain English, that's enough juice for a standard office desktop, around 250 watts, a 24-inch monitor, roughly 30 watts, and a typical home router, under 15 watts, with a comfortable margin. If you try to plug in a high-end gaming rig or a multi-GPU workstation, you'll quickly run out of capacity and the UPS will hit its overload protection. So, the sweet spot for this model is a modest yet essential workstation, the kind that most freelancers, writers, and remote team members rely on daily. One practical strength that shows up in real-world use is the way the Eaton handles voltage sags. In many suburban neighborhoods, you'll notice a brief dip when a large appliance kicks on a dryer or an HVAC compressor, for example. Those dips can cause a desktop to freeze or a router to reboot, which is a nightmare when you're on a conference call. The 9SX's automatic voltage regulation, AVR, smooths out those sags without draining the battery, so the UPS can preserve its battery life for the true outages that matter. In my own testing, I simulated a common 120V drop to 100V for about 4 seconds, and the unit kept the connected desktop humming without any audible alarm, which is a solid indicator that the AVR is doing its job. On the flip side, the UPS's battery runtime is modest as you'd expect from a 1500 VA model. If you were to run a full load of 350 watts, desktop plus monitor plus router, during a blackout, you'd get roughly 8 to 10 minutes before the unit signals a low battery warning. That's enough time to save your documents, close applications, and shut the computer down safely, but it isn't enough to keep you working through a prolonged outage. If you need longer backup, say, enough to finish a full video render or keep a server online for an hour, you'll need to look at higher capacity models or consider adding external battery packs. Another point that often gets overlooked is the UPS's noise level. Many tower UPSs emit a faint hum that can become noticeable in a quiet office. The Eaton 9SX leverages a brushless inverter designed to keep that hum low. In a typical bedroom office, the sound stayed under 45 dB, equivalent to a quiet refrigerator. That's a relief for anyone who runs a microphone or records podcasts nearby because you won't have to worry about a constant buzz in the background. Now, who should definitely skip this unit? If your primary concern is protecting high-end, power-hungry equipment, think workstation featuring multiple GPUs, large RAID arrays, or a high-capacity NAS, the 1500 VA rating will feel cramped. Likewise, if you run a small business with multiple monitors, a VoIP phone system, and a server rack on the same circuit, the unit will trip its overload protection far too quickly. In those cases, you'd be better served by a UPS in the 2000-2500 VA range, even if that means a higher price tag. Conversely, if you fit the profile of a freelancer, remote employee, or hobbyist who wants reliable protection for a single desktop environment, the Eaton 9SX hits the sweet spot. The unit also shines.